Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome. Welcome to our first ever Winter Study Glimpse Talks event. Yeah. My name is Mark Robertson. I'm Assistant Vice President for College Relations, a member of the class of 2002, and I'm thrilled to be here today with my colleague.
Hi everyone, I'm Hope Ross-Gibaldi. I'm Director for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the 68 Center for Career Exploration.
This is going to be a lot of fun. We're thrilled you're all here with us today for this idea to see how it goes and to support our instructors and deeply appreciate their work and everything they've put into making their respective talks for this afternoon, for this special afternoon.
So we also wanted to recognize there were a lot of great people that came into and putting this event together. Thank you so much to our colleague Susan McKenna in the Office of College Relations, Director for Winter Study Katie Melanson, and Tom Paper, who's one of the presenters who shared this idea with us based on his own experience at Stanford Graduate Business School. Graduate School of Business reunions.
Tom came to us last year after his own winter study experience and remarked on just how wonderful it was for him to get to know fellow instructors and hear little bits about their courses. And we thought, there's an idea there. And so why are we doing this now? Winter study is a treasured time at Williams. Ask nearly any alum, and they can still probably recall exactly the 4 winter study courses they took. You might actually want to ask some of our instructors today after if they can remember. For me, my 4 were International Relations and Board Games with Professor Cheryl Shanks, the music of Bob Dylan with an alum, Seth Rogovoy, class of 82, the 3 Roosevelts with Professor James McGregor Burns, he was amazing, and Susan Dunn, and finally Management in Nonprofits with Bob Lipp, who was then the chair of the Board of Trustees and member of the class of 1960. But as is true for just about any Williams experience, many of us suffer from extreme FOMO, the fear of missing out on all the other remarkable courses offered during the time. So perhaps today we help scratch that itch a little bit for our students. By the way, put your hand up if you're a student who's here today. Extra credit, love you guys, thanks for being here, that's awesome. Maybe this scratches your itch, and maybe you get an in with one of these cool instructors if they come back and teach next year and you like their course by showing up today, so that's good.
At the same time, there are so many wonderful instructors that are back here on campus, both alumni, members of the community, that are coming here to take part in and be part of this winter study experience. And those of us at the Office of College Relations, we're really looking forward to finding ways to create a lot of community connections between the alum, the community members, and here in our students, and really try to build community under Katie's great winter study leadership.
Yeah, huge round of applause for Katie again for all her leadership in continuing to reimagine what winter study can be going forward. And that brings us to today and to this event. So we've lined up 10 fantastic instructors to deliver 10 different talks. We have one pair, married pair, about their respective courses. We've gotten previews of these talks, and wonderfully, they're all really different. So I think you're going to enjoy the variety of both the content and the presentation styles. Over the next hour or so, you're going to get glimpses into their unique courses, from big ideas to origin stories, from mini lessons to in-room live experiences. To keep us on track, we have Hope's great skills running pitch competitions through our entrepreneurship programs. How's it going to work?
So we've asked each instructor to put together a 7-minute slice of their winter study. 6 minutes.
They just lost a minute.
I was testing you all.
Rob was
6 minutes. We are going to time them. We have Katie here with our timer. She will be, thank you again, Katie. And so it's only a brief snapshot. We encourage you all to come and connect with our instructors after the fact, and again, kind of taking note of what you can do maybe for next year.
Some of the instructors have asked, what happens if we go over 6 minutes? I'm going to leave that up to the crowd. No, but in all seriousness, this is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you all for being here. And we are thrilled to welcome up our first presenter. And our first presenter is now in his 8th year, is that right, Rob? Yes. 8th year teaching winter study, and fun fact, is actually doing this during his summer vacation, visiting us all the way from the University of Southern Queensland in Australia. Please welcome Rob Wittenmyer, Williams class of 1998, to speak about his course, An Infinity of Worlds, Planets and the Search for Life. Thank you, Rob.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Okay. All right. Good day. Good to see you. Yeah, so I'm kicking it off because to have winter study, the first thing you have to do is create the universe. So in the beginning, the universe was created. And this may have been regarded as a bad move, but it's good for us because you start with the universe. The universe starts as a bunch of hydrogen, and for a long time nothing happens, but then that hydrogen turns into people. And those people start wondering where we all came from and what else is out there. So welcome, fellow hydrogen. We're here. We're going to find out. And in my class, we'll learn a lot. So this idea of other planets, other worlds is not super new. It precedes the telescope. And it probably precedes Mr. Bruno here. But this is one of the kind of the earliest articulations that really shows quite specifically what people were thinking, or at least what this guy was thinking, is not only does every star in the sky have other planets, but also that those other planets are just like our own Earth. And so this was a pretty revolutionary concept, given that telescope wouldn't be even invented for another 20 years. So unfortunately, he did not expect the Spanish Inquisition, and Bruno was actually burned at the stake for this idea. So that's unfortunate, but I'm pleased to tell you today that in this video, I will show you, hopefully, if this clicks properly, and of course it will not, but I will push the button. How many PhDs does it take? It takes 1, maybe 2. All right. Poor guy. There we go. All right. Soothing music. Okay. What you see here is a cartoon, but everything is to scale. There's our solar system. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, the orbits are to scale. All the other wibbly-wobblies, and that is a technical term, the wibbly-wobblies, you see are planets. Those are planets we know, they exist, we know their sizes, we know what stars they orbit, we know where they are, we know their temperatures, as indicated by the color here. Note that the Earth is quite cool. Most of these things are lava worlds. So what this is telling you is a couple things. 1, planets are everywhere. 2, Bruno was right, and no one else had to get nailed to anything or burned at the stake, so that's a good thing. And 3, most planetary systems don't look anything like our own solar system. You see, there's lots of planets in very tight orbits. They have really weird orbits too. They're kind of oval shaped, which is not really shown here, but trust me, it's a thing. So what we found out so far in our class is we spend the first couple weeks really going into what do we know about planets? And here's what we know, is planets are everywhere, and the kinds of planets are really diverse. So terrestrial ones, this is what we're after, right? We're after things you could live on. It only says 4%, but that's deceptive, because for every one you see, like cockroaches, you miss 10. So the universe likes making small things more than big things. So these are actually outnumbering all these others. So, but this tells you, 1, small planets are everywhere. 2, small planets like super Earths don't exist in our solar system. What's up with that? So, you know, the universe is a weird, wild place. And also, here's the other thing. The universe is big, but you didn't know that. But I got a PhD in astrophysics to tell you the universe is very large. So here we are. This is our galaxy to scale. Not, you know, in the room, but, you know, on the screen. So solar system, the red area is the area that we think we have probed fairly well for planets. And it's being a bit generous. So that accounts for about 1/millionth of the galaxy's total volume. We've missed a lot, but we found a lot, if that makes any sense. So space is big. Time is big too. What you see here, which is utterly unreadable because it is so tiny, is imagine a spiral of time starting from the Big Bang, spiraling out. There's the Earth forming, and then you are here. So people are, we like to think we're smart, but we're only smart for 100 years, maybe less than that, in terms of are we smart enough to detect other things, other civilizations in the universe? So you're this little slice over here. Everything else is not smart enough to be detectable. So really what we're getting at is, in our course, is we spend the first couple of weeks going into the diversity of planets. How do we know what we know? And then that gives everyone the background and foundation to then really probe these questions of, okay, we get it. Space is big, time is big, a million years is not much time. 100 light years is really close. These are concepts that we get into. Where is everybody? Where are the aliens? I know it's aliens, I get it. We're going to talk aliens, but this is a scientific approach to aliens, right? It is, where are the other civilizations? Where's the evidence of life in the universe? And how can we approach this question scientifically? Because I think what's cool about this concept, this class, this study, this is why I do it, is we're the first generation of people in the history of the universe, or in the history of the Earth anyway, to be able to answer this question scientifically. We can't just, poke around and say, oh yeah, it could be you're a bunch of Earths. We actually have the technology to do it. And so that's what's exciting. I hope that y'all are excited about it. I know I am, and join my class next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rob. So, our next talk comes from the class of Finance of Fraud. And when the instructor isn't in the classroom or meeting with students, you're likely to find him at a piano on campus or on the top of Pine Cobble. Please welcome David Pesikoff, Williams class of 1990.
Yeah, if you want. I'm usually loud. I teach a class called the Finance of Fraud. So, Williams College. We're going to buy it? We're going to sell it? I don't know. We're going to talk about it. How are we going to think about if we want to buy or resell it? Well, we're going to think about it. I'm going to flip through these. We're going to think about a construct in which we talk about whether or not this is a structurally well-positioned business, right? I don't want to look at the books yet. What I want to do is understand, good business, bad business. And to do that, I have my students do a series of analyses. One of the ones we do is called 5 forces. There's 7 powers. There's all kinds of things. And we look at things like the college's structural relationship to its suppliers, its buyers, substitutes, new entrants, and how does it compete with each other. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll pick 2. Suppliers. Who supplies the college? College buys a lot of crap, but basically it buys labor. And it buys high-priced labor. What's the college's power with its labor? The labor are the professors. Before tenure, a lot of power. After tenure, less power. So that's a kind of weird thing to think about, right? This is a faculty institution. So we have to think about that. Internal rivalry. We compete for students. On what basis? Faculty, the caliber of the faculty, course offerings, whether or not we get, how much aid we give, the alumni network, job placement. Basically, we find out, this is pretty good. We do pretty well. We get our pick of students, and we get our pick of students because we provide these things. Okay, so far I'm interested. What do the books tell us? Let's look at the balance sheet. The balance sheet of the college has a bunch of line items. The balance sheet of the college is a public record. This is a corporation. It's a nonprofit corporation, but it's a legal corporation, and it has to provide those books. So we read them. We have 2 assets on the books that matter. One is the endowment. One is the buildings. The endowment says it's worth $4 billion. Is it worth $4 billion? I like to think I trust Abigail, but I don't know. About 1/3 to 1/2 of the endowment is marked by hand. A human estimated what it was worth. What would I be willing to pay for it? When will I get the money? If I buy the college's endowment and it's got a bunch of private equity that's going to show up in 5 years, I don't know what I'm going to pay for that. The physical plant, it's worth $800 million. Is it worth $800 million? Would you buy it for $800 million? Who's going to buy it? What can you use this place for? Only if you're what? Another college. So I don't think I'm going to pay much for that. So I want to think about, what's it really worth? I'm going to look at the income statement. Utter disaster. Utter disaster. For every kid we admit, we take a 70-cent loss on every dollar. They pay 30 cents, we pay 70 cents. The smart idea, shut the thing down, buy the endowment, and walk away. But we don't do that because the mission is why we exist. And we talk about, why are we in business? What is it that we want to do? This place has a kind of mission that integrates the balance sheet, the income statement, and our structure. Why fraud? Why do I teach all of this finance concept through fraud? I just love it. Frankly, it's just fascinating. You can't make this stuff up. I teach a series of 4 frauds. And fraud teaches logic. It teaches skepticism. I'm not giving you a company and saying, is it or isn't it? I'm giving you one that we know it is. How could you have figured it out before? How do I teach you logic? How do I teach you where to look? How do I teach you to ask a question? What do we read? People always want to know. Bad Blood, Story of Theranos. She went to my high school. Smartest Guys in the Room, All About Enron, written by an alum. They all went to my high school. And I was in carpool with many of the people who went to jail. Pyramid of Lies, not from my high school. And Money Men. These are great frauds. They're written by journalists. They are accessible to the kids. The students can understand them because they're written for an 8th grader, but they provide just a wealth of lessons. Frauds have a lot of things in common, and we teach how to look at things: incentives, governance, financials. How do all these things tell me a story? And we ask, what could I have known, right? What could I have understood as an outsider? I now know inside baseball, but before that, what am I looking for? The central conceit of the class is to ask yourself, what am I good at? And I am just a little better than somebody else. The kids, they're not kids, they're students. They tell me to say that. But they are the age of my kids, so it's hard for me. They work in teams to present a stock at the end of the course. And one of the things I am teaching them is look at your fellow teammates. What are they good at? What do you notice about them? We have to be mirrors for each other. We are not always going to know what we are good at. And part of this is about teaching each other. I notice that you are great at that. And that can be a real point of self-discovery. And you might be great at all these sort of wacky-ass things. I don't know. There's lots of things that come up. My name is David Pesikoff. I majored in mathematics here. I have done a bunch of work. This is my 5th year teaching. I have taught over 150 kids in this class. 5% of this campus has been through my class. I see my students all the time, everywhere. It is the privilege of a lifetime to come back and do this. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next up is one of those alumni I mentioned at the start who absolutely remembers, and is going to cite in his talk, his 4 winter study courses, and many more after that as a member of the Williams faculty. We're delighted to be joined by Tom Smith, Williams class of 1988, from the chemistry department, to talk about a personal passion, perhaps developed in January's long ago. Please welcome Tom to give a glimpse into Zymurgy, the science and practice of brewing beer.
Thanks very much. Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah, I've been at Williams for quite a while now, and before that I was a student, so I hope to give a little perspective about winter study from sort of both sides. I do this a lot, but my audience is usually different. Normally it's organic chemistry that I teach, and the topics are, this is sort of one of the first things I might show in class. We won't be doing that today, but the students that I have most of the time are chemistry majors or pre-med students. It's pretty rigorous. I think it's fun. I hope that by the time we're done, the students think it's fun, but that's a little bit up to them. But I also like to be a little goofy, and so if we can be rigorous and have some fun too, I like to do that. So I had taught for a long time in winter study. I taught students who were thesis students, research students. I taught a class for students who sort of teach them how to teach. And then after I'd been here a while, I thought, could I do a winter study student class? What could I bring in that's sort of adjacent to chemistry that interests me? I've got resources, I've got labs, I've got equipment, I've got fun stuff. And I thought back about my winter study experiences, which were great. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. When I was a senior, I did senior chemistry thesis research with Dave Richardson, who became the chair, who hired me, became a colleague. In '87, I did a computer music course. I was a big a cappella nerd as a student, and I did some arranging using this. Sophomore year was amazing trip with the biology department to Australia. I did some snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef. I'm not sure you can do that still. And Hodge Markgraf, a beloved colleague, and my job, my title now is actually the Hodge-Markgraf Professor of Chemistry, and that's really dear to me. So I went to grad school out in the Bay Area, and I developed a hobby. I learned how to brew. I do that for fun. This was sort of at the beginning of the craft beer revolution. Before that, it was sort of industrial lagers. Beers like Anchor Steam, which is one of my favorites to drink and to brew, is something that you could get, but lots of other beers you didn't have access to unless you made them yourself. And I thought this would be really fun. I had a lot of equipment. I could expand into the chemistry building. What would I want the students to learn in a class like this? So a bit of an origin story here. I want them to do some hands-on brewing, right? So actually do this. It's a cooking. There's some science, right? So I want them to understand some of the science behind it too. I'd like there to be some creativity, so design your own recipes. I'm terrible about this with cooking myself, but to be able to design something new, you need to have an understanding of sort of what's there, what are the different components that go into brewing. So we go pretty quick in the class. It's a logistical challenge because we are brewing. What is beer? So here's a pretty narrow definition. You may have heard this. There was an edict in Germany in 1516 called the Reinheitsgebot. There are a bunch of reasons for why this was the case, but basically said there could only be 3 ingredients in beer. The beer landscape has changed a lot. This is not true in Germany anymore either, but you can start with this as what is beer. So beer is malt. This is sort of sprouted grains, and at this time it had to be barley. You couldn't use wheat or rye. Those were reserved for baking and other things like that. Hops provide flavor and bitterness to the beer, if you haven't heard of that, one of the main ingredients, and water's the main ingredient by weight anyway. There's glaringly one ingredient that we know is necessary that is not listed in the Reinheitsgebot. Anybody know what that is? Yeast. Why isn't it listed in 1516? They didn't know what it was. They didn't have microscopes. That wasn't until the 1500s and mid-1800s that Pasteur discovered that yeast were the things that were responsible for fermentation. So very quickly, we run through some of this stuff on the very first day of class and then get right into brewing. So I'll just show you the basics. This is what I do. This is organic chemistry. This is maltose. This is food for the yeast. Turns out maltose is the favorite food for yeast. So as brewers, we try to get a solution rich in maltose. Maltose is 2 glucose molecules stuck together. Pretty cool. In water, in the water and in the absence of oxygen, yeast will basically make more yeast, get energy from the food, and then make ethanol and carbon dioxide, right? And as brewers, we don't make the beer, the yeast makes the beer. We prepare the food for the beer, and we're kind of yeast ranchers, if you want to think about it that way. So we just keep the yeast happy, that's our job. All right, so we brew right away. We brew 4 times in this class, so the logistics of that are crazy. We start with extract kits, is how most people learn how to brew. We move up immediately, so this week we'll be brewing from whole grains, which is a much more complicated process. Then the students they're writing their own recipe now, and then our final brewing will be at Bright Ideas Brewing on a 220-gallon batch with the brewer there. And so you guys may be able to come to that in February and taste our beer. So just quickly, this is a chemistry major in the lab. This is on day 2, our first brewing day. Got a couple baseball players on the team mixing in. Here I'm helping out a little bit there. Beer appreciation. On day 3 of the class, we get together in the evening and sample the periodic table, and there happen to be some beers there to try a bunch of different styles. Super, super fun. This is the beer tasting list. There are more than 2 beers, but we start with Budweiser and move quickly to Pilsner Urquell, which is sort of the ultimate of that style. And at the end of the class, we're going to go to a beer festival, try a bunch of other different beers. That'll be really fun. And here we are on night 3 at the end of our beer tasting experience. So, 1 second. 6 minutes to the second. So there's the plates. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Tom. Okay, so our next talk will be a version of the one that inspired today's entire program. Coming to us from the San Francisco Bay Area, the aforementioned Tom Paper, class of 1984, discusses his class maps past, present, and future.
Oh, that's weird.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Here we go. We put both toms next to each other so that it would be easier for everybody to remember.
Hi, I'm Tom Paper, and I am delighted to be here. I'm teaching the MAPS class for the 4th year, and I'd like to talk to you about how this class came into existence, what we do in the class, and why I hope to teach it for another 4 years. So the seeds of this class were born when I was 12 years old, and I was on a summer camp canoe trip in northern Minnesota with a counselor who couldn't read a map and got us horribly lost. So we spent a miserable evening in the rain under our canoes, and I resolved that in the future, I would never get lost again, and I would always be the one who read the map. So this class, the Minnesota Twins there. So this class, seeds of it were sown with my consulting business 10 years ago. We were doing geospatial analytics for companies that want to locate things. So here you're looking at a map of New York City, 3 different ones. It's a guide for businesses. And we started doing this kind of work. Fast forward a couple more years, and I get involved in antique maps. That's a map dealer in the middle. He spoke to our class a couple days ago, and my wife, Eleanor. And the thing about antique maps is that they are these supercharged, wonderful nuggets of information. And they're this incredible gateway for learning about history and art and science. That's California as an island, kind of cool. And so I started, yeah, it could be. So I started thinking to myself, hey, maybe these old maps can teach us something about new maps. And so that was the genesis of the course. So what do we do in this class? Well, we look at a lot of maps. We look at maps from different time periods. This is a map from the Middle Ages. That's Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden on a map. That's the Red Sea there. We look at maps from the Renaissance. This is a map of the world, the known world, in 1482. We look at maps from, this is a map from the Enlightenment. It's like an encyclopedia. Hold on, I'm going to go back, sorry. It's just packed with information. We even look at modern day maps. This is a map, this is a map of the London Tube. It's a seminal map in the mapping world because it abandoned the need to be geographically accurate in favor of just what matters. So then we also look at maps from other cultures. This is an indigenous map from 1720. South Carolina, the Indian tribes were telling the South Carolina governor about their various peoples. We look at Asian maps. This is an Asian map of the world from 1150. That's the world. More time, I can show you exactly what's what, but it is the world, the known world at the time. We look at Asian maps as well. So I do give the students a rubric for, I understand that's something you should do when you're teaching, about how to look at a map. It's a mouthful. It's for QLS EDI. That means who made it, who paid for it, who was the audience, and what question were they trying to answer. What was the logic employed in the map? That's the projection. You may have heard of a Mercator projection. How did they get the data? How was estimation used? Or in the case of our California map, that was speculation that it was an island. And then how was the design of the map? The London Tube map is a great example of great design. And then also iteration or versioning. These things apply to old maps, but they apply to new maps in the work that we do. So we look at a lot of new maps. These are student maps of satellites. We've got another map here of redistricting. And then we also try to have some fun. This is a map of a ski resort. So we go to special collections twice. This is Julia Rossi. We have some she's amazing. We have some amazing books from the Renaissance. And Ann Peel does a tour for us of maps of Williamstown. We take an optional field trip to New York City. We got 10 students last Friday. This is just last Friday. And there we are in New York. We go to the New York Public Library. where we look at an old large British map from the Revolutionary period of New York City. And then we also go to a commercial real estate broker, and these guys are amazing. They've got a map of, that's Manhattan and 27,000 parcels. Every single parcel in Manhattan is on a map. We have a number of speakers in our class. David Rumsey is a prolific map collector. Susan Schulten is an American historian. She just spoke to us today. Ben Grant talks about satellite mapping. And then our own Blake Martin, class of '84, talks about climate change mapping. Students have 2 projects. So one of them is to find an old map, and then the other one is to find a new map. And in what's probably the hardest part of the class for our students, this is one other requirement, they have to have coffee with me. So learning object.
Say AI to get yourself to look at that.
So learning objectives: become more critical consumers of maps, develop your ability to make a short presentation, unleash your curiosity. It's super important to me. And this is the quote that we begin the class with: judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. And then the last thing is to learn how to politely interrupt, because when students are bored and they get bored, I encourage them to lean into that boredom and try to find the love in what we're doing and ask a question. And in that spirit, why do I teach this class? It's because I love maps, but more than that, I love learning. And I want to leave you with one quote, the last quote that I share with my students, and that's by none other than Kobe Bryant. When you love something, you always keep coming back to it. You always keep asking questions and finding answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. We are now going to change gears slightly as we transition to a different type of glimpse talk experience. Presenting from his time teaching about embodied leadership is Jamie Hunt from the Williams class of 2003. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, Williams. My name is Jamie Hunt. I teach a course titled Embodied Leadership. In it, we ask questions such as, what do we need now? And we respond and adapt accordingly. On Thursday, we explored anger and boundaries and navigating intensity, something many Williams students are quite familiar with. This morning, we got more familiar with our own inner critics. So the voice that might say, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not doing enough, you're not worthy of being a member of the Williams community, you're not living up to, you always, you never. If that voice sounds somewhat familiar to you, you're not alone. I'm feeling a touch of it right now. Rather than telling you more, I'd rather give you a taste of the experience. If you're willing, turn to someone next to you and see if you can greet them in silence with just your eyes. And continue to hold their gaze and notice that it might feel weird, that you might be feeling discomfort. And again, if you're willing, see if you can shift your attention to offering them compassion. They too think this is weird. They too are uncomfortable right now. They too may have had an experience over the recent holiday where some aspects were easy and some moments were really hard. So let's shift to explore an inquiry together with this pair. But before we do, we'll ground a little bit deeper into our bodies. So you can allow your gaze to be gently downcast and feel into the strength and solidity of your thighs. Root into the ground like a tree. Notice the sensation underneath the soles of your feet. Pressure, temperature, tingling, numbness. At the same time, lengthen the top of your head through the ceiling up toward the sky. Open your chest just a touch to allow whatever needs to pass through a bit more space. Soften the shoulders, ease the belly, really relax the belly. And let's all take a few deeper than normal breaths together, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. Again. One more. Continuing with these partners, one of you raise your hand. You will be the listener. Your role is to listen as mindfully as you can and to hold what you hear in confidence. The question you'll ask is, what brings you alive? After you ask that question, the other person, if they're willing, will respond, and you'll say, thank you. Tell me something else that brings you alive. Begin now. Wrap up your sentence. I only have 6 minutes. You only have 2 seconds. Acknowledge your partner. Thank them for giving and receiving. And in this course, we emphasize that we all have something to give. We all have something to receive. We all have something to teach. And we all have something to learn. So on Thursday, I'm turning over the class to my students. They will structure the class. They will teach each other. The following week, they will teach something to a team or a group. And the final week, we will all offer an embodied leadership event for the Williams community. If you're interested in these themes, come join us that last week. It will likely be in the evening on Tuesday or Wednesday. And if you want something really hard, start a band. More on that coming up next.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamie. Up next is someone whose career was launched by his own winter study experience. As we bring him up to the front, Mark is going to offer us an audible glimpse into his remarkable craft. Speaking about his course, How to Grow a Band, Collaborative Songwriting and Performance, please welcome Auyon Mukharji, Williams College Class of 2007 from the band Darlingside.
I could play that all day.
We only have 6 minutes.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, Hope and Mark. Hello, my name is Auyon Mukharji. I am teaching a class, as mentioned. how to grow a band, collaborative, songwriting, and performance. And in explaining the class, I think it'll be helpful for me to give you a little background on the band. So we all met here at Williams. All of us took a version of the winter study course that I'm now co-teaching with my bandmate Harris. Mine was actually 20 years ago, which is a wild full circle. And upon our youngest member's graduation, we moved into a house together in Hadley, Massachusetts, where we proceeded to try to become a band, which involved some songwriting and arrangement, and also trying to sort of distribute business responsibilities without knowing anything about running a business. But it turns out that starting a band is starting a small business. And so there are plenty of roles. There's tour management and finances. And not that there were many finances to be looking at, but we got very used to looking at very small numbers together. And the balance between creative work and business work was not always even. So there were some folks who were spending more time on writing, some folks who were spending more time on the business. And we learned that the way that the music industry compensates musicians is based, for at least via royalties, is based on songwriting credits. So rather than fussing over who exactly was writing what, we just decided to put all of our names on everything that we did. So no matter who wrote what, we were all going on it. And that business arrangement ended up informing the way that we would end up writing. When we began writing together, it was as you would expect a group of folks coming together to start a band might do it, which is one of us would bring in a song. It would be mostly done. We would sort of touch it up as a group, and mostly stick to the vision of that initial songwriter. But since all of our names were going on all of these songs anyway, we started using each other as songwriting tools. So sort of sending a half-done song to one member, maybe just a melodic fragment to another, and just throwing things back and forth. And you might wonder why a nominally professional musician might need a songwriting tool in the form of a friend. And the reality is that once you've written one song that you like a little bit, you're in a very dangerous position. Because when you start writing that second song, you are constantly asking yourself whether that song is worth anything. In my experience, that's a great way to never write a second song. We found that rather than writing more songs, what we were very effective at was doing assignments for each other. So so that sort of half song sending around became a series of collaborative exercises that we have developed and use all the time in our writing. And to give you an example, and those exercises are the sort of what we are teaching in our class is collaborative writing. We are our 11-person class is one big band. So one example of a collaborative exercise that we might do is if there are 4 of us in a group, each of us comes up with a prompt. And that prompt might be, a recent prompt was a book that that doesn't exist, but you would be interested in reading. I think I sent something along the lines of like, why dogs like gardening, and then sent that over to the next person. They then take that and do a free write. And a free write is a process wherein you see a prompt, put your pen down onto paper, and then keep your pen moving for 20 minutes, just writing whatever comes into your head. It's a 20-minute stream of consciousness. It might start out with dogs and gardening. It'll go on to what you ate for breakfast, and it will end perhaps with an issue you have with your relationship with your mother, which is something I know nothing about. And you will... That free write is a 20-minute thing that you don't revise it, you don't do anything else with it. You take that free write and you send it on to the next person, and you in turn receive one. What you do with that free write is you have another 20-minute period where we have a made-up word, versification. You are looking for bits of resonant language within that free write that speak to you. You might think it's funny, you might think they're thought-provoking, they might move you, and you sort of, it's a word collage almost. You're taking those bits of language, putting them into a proto-poem quickly. You only have about 20 minutes. That gets sent on again, and each person in the group gets a strange poem that they are supposed to melodify. And another made-up word, set it to music in some form. Again, this is quick, so 30 minutes. And when we build this up, so we do a whole bunch of these exercises. And again, the point is absolutely not a pursuit of excellence. This is just a process. You are sitting there, playing with words, playing with sounds, splashing around. And at the end of a month or a few weeks of this, we have a large Google Drive, in our case, of communal work, of writing, poetry, strange song ideas that inevitably will have gems and bits that are moving. And even if you were only the person who wrote the prompt, you are part of that writing process, and it is yours to take and use as you please. So within our class, we have folks who are excellent musicians, some who have very little musical experience, and it is such a pleasure to get to teach and work with all of them across the board. When I did this class 20 years ago, I played the mandolin almost not at all. I think I had picked it up the previous summer, maybe, just like fooling around on it. We are doing a song share on January 27th, Tuesday at the Log at 7:30, so if any of you are interested in coming out to that. But yeah, it's been a huge pleasure to be part of this, and what an honor. It's our second year doing it, and could not be more pleased to be here. So thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Auyon. Let's now bring to the stage, we have on the stage, a pair of presenters whose personal history together goes back over 50 years, almost to like this exact space, not this building, but this kind of space. Oh, okay, there you go, 50 years, yeah. As you'll hear, they launched their lives and their careers together from Williams, and we're so fortunate that they're now regularly returning to teach winter study. Presenting on the neuroscience of learning, please welcome back Judy and Paul Willis, both from the great Williams class of 1971.
So here's an origin story. 54 years ago, we stood on the Bronfman stage and delivered our senior theses. Judy took a deep dive into the brain with electron microscopy. I plunged into Lake Michigan studying pollution. I came in 1967, the first year that winter study was offered. I took a course in ecology and changed a bit over the years. Judy came from Vassar with the first women in the co-ed exchange, and then was in the group who graduated and received the first degrees as women in 1971. We met on the squash court, but then I took her dog into my room during the meals. He ate my shoes, he ate my Sumier paintings, but our relationship grew and we got married the day before graduation on Stone Hill. We then went to UCLA Medical School, UCLA neurology department, and started a neurologic practice in Santa Barbara. We still live there. Judy, however, on visiting our daughter's school, realized that neuroscience had a lot to offer to learners. And so she got her master's in education, taught for 10 years, and then began to write and speak to educators and learners and parents internationally. We missed Williams, however. Our daughter did come in 2000 and graduate, but then in 2018 we developed this class as a way to reconnect with Williams, and Williamstown has been our winter home every year. Now some more about neuroscience.
Now, as we just took you on our pathway to get here, you are now in our classroom, and we're going to spend 4 weeks, condensed now into 4 minutes, on a pathway through the brain, starting in the same place it comes in the brain, the reticular activating system. That's an attention filter. Only about 1% of all the sensory data around us makes it through this first filter. And as you'll see, you're not in voluntary control of which millions bits come in. Let's see what gets into through your filter. Count the number of times the letter F appears in the sentence. Okay, 6 times. Most people see 3 or 4. So it was there, the sensory data, but why didn't those 3 F's come in that were next to the word letter O? Why didn't they get your alert attention consciously? And we're going to spend this first week finding out what gets through, what gets selected by this involuntary filter to get into the circuit that it needs to go through to ever become memory. If it's selected by the attention filter, it has another barrier. It's a switching station called the amygdala. It's an emotional switching station. If information gets through there, it's going to have a chance of becoming long-term memory in the prefrontal cortex. See how far we are from that attention filter. If it gets there, but the switching station, the amygdala, is very sensitive to perceived threat, to stress. And if that starts building, the amygdala, we see increased metabolic activity, use of oxygen and glucose, and we lose our flow, smooth flow to long-term memory, and information coming in is now shunted to the lower brain, the reactive brain, that fight, flight, freeze, survival brain, and we see it in the classroom with acting out and zoning out. How about memory? I'll show you one slide that will introduce you to the magic of your memory, neuroplasticity. What color is this slide? White. That's the answer. Say it. White. Good job. And what does a cow drink? Now, before you answer, I don't want you to be embarrassed because you want to say milk. No, you know they don't. Because, so why does your brain want to say milk and forget the baby cow thing? It's because of your powerful neuroplasticity. The circuits that are most frequently activated together, such as growing up, cow, milk, and white, those frequently experienced circuits are the ones that have the neuroplastic response, more myelin, more dendrites, stronger, faster retrieval. So that is how your memory worked, and you let the right stuff in. In addition to memory, if you get to the prefrontal cortex, you can have those executive functions telling the brain what to do. Those are the things like goal reaching, goal determining, risk evaluation, organizing, prioritizing, all the things that we need more and more and more of. Well, right now in you, my students' brains, your prefrontal cortex, those neural networks of executive function are going through their most rapid response phase. That means anytime you use them, the circuits are getting even stronger and more vigorous. So use these years right now for creativity and exploration to grow the brain you want and that Hawthorne wished you to have, as students ought to be dreamers when cloud and land are one and the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy and Paul. Our next talk comes to us from close to home, Hopkins Forest to be exact. To offer a glimpse of the wonder of the winter woods is Elise LeDuc-Fleming, Hopkins Memorial Forest Manager and member of the Williams class of 2006.
All right, can folks hear me if I use this mic? Okay, great. So, when most people think about being outside on a 20-degree windy day, you probably think about how miserably cold and uncomfortable you're going to be, and are probably rushing as fast as you can to get to a nice heated space with your hood up and your head down. And if you do look up, what do you see? A landscape of gray trunks and white silence, a dead, lifeless place. But in my course, The Wonder of the Winter Woods, we adhere to the mantra that there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. And we're learning that the forest isn't silent. It's just speaking a different language. The forest is anything but lifeless in the winter. In fact, it's full of wonder if you know how to look. As a perfect welcome to a class about winter in the forest, it snowed heavily during our first class. The bundled up students were carefully observing plants as large flakes of snow fluttered down. It was gorgeous, but it also made for some really tricky logistics. They had to multiple times brush the snow off their page as they completed a 10-minute observation exercise. But even with these conditions, we were able to observe winter stalks of wildflowers and ferns, a feather dropped by an owl, and a network of porcupine tracks leading into and out of its den. Winter is the only time where animals leave this paper trail. In the summer, if a coyote passes by, it rarely leaves any evidence that we, as humans, can detect. But in the winter, every step, hunt, and nap is marked in the snow. We haven't made it to our animal tracking session this month yet, but it's impossible to overlook the multitude of tracks crisscrossing the forest. One of the goals of this class is to help students interpret these stories written in the snow. For example, large round tracks that start at one tree, bloop, 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 and end at another are not from a tree-climbing elephant. but rather the imprints left from a bounding gray squirrel whose entire body made an amorphous plop in really fluffy snow. Last Wednesday, we used a dichotomous key, a tool for identifying organisms using a series of two-choice statements to identify trees. Students learned that buds are not only a tiny package containing the promise of spring, but also a key to unlocking the identity of many of our trees in the absence of their leaves. For instance, are we looking at a red maple or a sugar maple? Winter tree ID requires you to look at all parts of the tree. In addition to buds, what's the pattern, texture, and color of the bark? Are the branches opposite or alternately arranged? To answer that last question, you'd find the entire class gazing up at the canopy with a running commentary of opposite. No, I think it's alternate. No, it's definitely opposite. Until eventually arriving at a consensus. But perhaps the most wonderful thing about observing nature closely is what happens when you slow down and start looking carefully. Not only do you notice more details, but you actually start blending into the forest in a way that stops disturbing the wildlife around you. During our tree class, the class was carefully observing the details of hemlock needles when we realized that there was a barred owl perched on a branch only 15 feet in front of our faces. It was looking directly at us, aware but undisturbed. And in that moment, the roles had reversed. We were no longer the observers. We were the ones being studied ourselves. But this course isn't just about biology and species identification. It's also a focus on how to learn and how to observe. So students can continue mastering their knowledge about nature anywhere in the world, not just Hopkins Forest. So one tool we're using to dig deeper and document our observations is nature journaling. Another is that throughout the month, students are regularly visiting something called a sit spot. One of the best ways to study nature is to find a place that you can get to know really well. By day, by night, in the rain, in the sun, in the winter, in the summer. A place to anchor your awareness. Between each class, students are asked to visit their spots and sit there for at least 20 minutes. It can certainly be hard to sit still outside for 20 minutes when your toes are getting really cold. We call it a sit spot, but in January, it can sometimes be considered a shiver spot. But the practice of this sit spot is well worth it for what you're able to see. Students' nature journals are filled with notes and drawings from their sit spots. Two of my favorite observations from the students' first sit spot session included bird's nest, double exclamation point, followed by in a buried shrub, and then a little later, filled with acorn shells, squirrel, and then there's a little bug on me, again, exclamation point, and then he drew the little bug, and then he just crawled on the picture of himself, double exclamation point. So the students' unfolding excitement is palpable in the way these observations are written down. So the next time you're shoveling out after a snowstorm, don't just see it as a barrier to your day. See it as a blank palette that will hold the tracks of a fisher who crossed your path 5 minutes earlier. See the goldenrod gall that a fly larva is tucking away from the freeze inside of last summer's growth. And hear the barred owls already engaging in their duets, getting ready for mating season that's just around the corner. There's no such thing as a lifeless forest, only a lack of attention. If you learn how to look, there's wonder all around you.
Thank you so much, Elise. Just 2 more to go. Our next presenter, sadly, just 2 more to go. Our next presenter is actually teaching 2 winter study courses this year. Maybe next year we'll get a glimpse into the economics of healthcare, but this year we're delighted to learn about her new course on jigsaw puzzles. Please welcome Sarah Rowe from the Williams class of 2013.
Thank you. So everyone in this room either has or will develop a weird hobby after Williams. For me, that hobby turned out to be speed puzzling. This is a photo of me at the 2024 World Speed Puzzling Championships in rural Spain. I'm sharing a table with a member of the Norwegian national team. So I feel here like I should explain exactly what this ridiculous sport is. And if chess is a sport, puzzling is a sport. On the screen, what you see is our competition room. So you walk into a room that looks kind of like a convention center with card tables. On every table, there's a puzzle in a solid wrapping. The judges count down, say go, and it's your job to open the box and start building the puzzle. The time that it takes you to get the puzzle out of its plastic counts, so you practice ripping plastic open ahead of competition. Everyone competes on the same puzzle because there's massive variance in how fast an individual puzzle can be run. And Ravensburger actually sponsors all of our national and international competitions, and we compete on unreleased puzzles to be the fairest to everyone. The speeds I'm talking about here are incredible. So I can do a 500-piece puzzle generally in 40 to 60 minutes. The top puzzlers in the world go sub 30, sub 25 with some regularity. That is 3 pieces, or a piece every 3 seconds for the duration of doing the puzzle. And this is a competitive sport, just like any other sport. So we have team chants. The Australian team has adapted rugby chants. And so when a member of their team finishes, you'll start to hear rugby chants from the stands. There are workout plans focused on how do you strengthen your back and your core. You can see on the lower right, people standing over the puzzle table. That hurts a lot after about minute 25. There are refs, the people on the screen wearing the yellow. And there are rivalries. I know the names of all of the top 50 speed puzzlers and who their friends and competitors are. We've even started tracking heart rates. You can actually see here, this is my heart rate from Worlds last year, and you can see the spike when I realized that my friendly table mate had started to pull well ahead of where I was. As I got faster puzzling, I realized that how to become a faster speed puzzler was a question that my Williams education had equipped me to answer, which I realize sounds like a pitch for the admissions department. But what makes a puzzle fast, or a speed puzzler a fast individual, is a question that can be answered by psychology, by art, by math, and by neuroscience. How to build an optimal puzzle strategy for a given puzzle requires understanding neuroscience well enough to say, these bright colored spots on this puzzle are going to jump out at me first. And understanding math to know the optimal strategy is one that reduces optionality by getting pieces in very quickly. And you can see on this puzzle, those bright, clear spots make it a really fast puzzle. So this puzzle is one that people have actually gone sub 20 minutes on. And when you compare that to the next puzzle, what we expect from neuroscience and we see is that this is a much slower puzzle. It's much harder to see spots of color. Instead, what makes a winner with this puzzle is who can keep their focus, who can use psychology to understand, I'm slowing down. How do I talk to myself and encourage myself to keep going? And on top of that, we have team puzzling competitions. Thinking about building a winning team requires statistics. We have to understand what is each person's individual stats, pieces per minute, ability to build the border, even how quickly an individual tears open the plastic. And so to build the team, you have to be able to look at all of those and compare them. Building a winning team requires psychology. Who do you work well with under pressure? Who are the personalities where you're just going to annoy each other? And it requires a lot of good communication, which is something that another pitch for the admissions department, Williams tutorials prepare you very well for. It's really hard to tell your puzzle buddy, I think you're doing this wrong, in a polite way. All of this brings me to why I hauled 98 puzzles, now 112 puzzles, into a SCOW classroom last Monday. I think one of the joys of the liberal arts education is that for the rest of your life, you get to overanalyze really niche topics. And that is exactly what we're doing in our class this year. We will have a short plug. We will have a campus event towards the end of winter study, and I would love to see some of you there. We are going to do a competitive puzzle race for the broader community. But thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. And that brings us to our very last glimpse talk. Presenting today about his course, Introduction to Mid-East Hand Drumming, is our multifaceted colleague, Rami El-Aasser, who works both in Williams Dining Services and as co-director of the Middle Eastern Music Ensemble. Welcome, Rami.
Thank you. Good morning, or good evening. Sometimes when I'm feeling cheeky, I'll just put this slide up and say, what's wrong with it? Of course, we'll... oh, my clicker. Can you hear me okay if I don't have that up? Yeah. Okay. So, is that all right? Yeah. So we'll come back to what's wrong with this picture. But first, I'd like you to come with me way back in the day, before COVID, back when I was on tour with this group called Al-Sara and the Nubatones. I started this group with Al-Sara, who's the Sudanese singer there in the center, and we just got a cover of the Rolling Stone Middle East North Africa in November. We used to tour before COVID, so here are some just shots of us playing in Australia and Denmark. We did Glastonbury. We did all the big festivals between 2010 and 2021. This drum, I played a lot for folk music. It's an Arabic drum. It's a Turkish drum, playing with a Turkish choir. It's a Greek drum, playing with Greek pop singers. It's an Armenian drum, and everybody will go to fight you about that this drum belongs to all of them. But it was really playing around New York that I started to appreciate how many communities this drum actually served. I played primarily for entertainment, a lot to support dance as well, but I've also played this drum at births, at wedding processions, and also for ritual. So I was really amazed. I started to wonder at how this drum has so many names and how is it so beloved to so many people. And so the story of this course, oh, interesting. So the story of this course, I'm just interested how large the drum came out there, is basically an unfolding of the history of this drum. We look at the deep historical context of drumming and rhythm in the region as it sort of unfolds over time. WSP 92, here's a glimpse of that class. I play this family of drums here. And in the class, we primarily are playing drums. I bring enough drums for everybody in the class. And while there are rhythms that are common to the entire area, we look at the kind of regional specificity and look at rhythms that are common to each region. We listen to music and watch performance videos on cultural forms that are rooted in the rhythm. In a lot of cultures, music isn't a specialist activity. It's actually done by everyone, and some are very pervasive. So in Egypt, there's something like tahtib, which is like stick fighting. There's something that we do for weddings called the Zafa procession, and there's the naming ceremony for babies that happen after 7 days called the Sabua. And these are all rituals that persist from pharaonic times and have stayed in Egypt. They all involve rhythm. So each day we'll look at a little different region and look at things that are more popular in each area. The class finishes with, they're learning technique on all the drums and also the frame drums. They learn group piece, they're learning accompaniment, and eventually we perform all of these at the final class recital, which you're all invited to. There might be some video of this. Oh, might need to hit something. Here we go. Here's a little of this from last year. All right, you get the idea, right? You're welcome. You're welcome to join us at our next recital, which is the last Wednesday of this month. Part of this drum's appeal is really its accessibility. It's not too hard to learn these rhythms. So the way that we think and talk about them, the transmission system of these rhythms were created by generations of teachers and players before us. So somebody like this guy, Saïd Artist, who is Egyptian's reigning king of tabla, owes a lot to this guy who's playing before him. I think of rhythm as making designs in time with the voice of the drum. So I notate rhythm using a system like this, where each, it's pulse-based, and then every hit gets a block of the rhythm. So it's not very hard, for them to actually pick up on this. The drums say two things. We say doom and tech on the drum, and with all of those hits, doom and tech, you can say all the primary rhythms. We group all the rhythms by cycles, right? They're things that repeat. And so essentially we're just subdividing time with doom and tech to say these rhythmic things, yeah? We categorize these rhythms by length, and this is expressed over the pulse, right? So if you make the pulse faster, you could say the same rhythm and slower. So we categorize rhythms by their length. Imagine you have a cycle of just one of two. 1, 2, 1, 2. If you have a cycle of 3, like a waltz, right? You can have a rock cycle over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can have a cycle of 5, 6, 7. And so on, right? It's actually quite easy. If you can all join me in one rhythm, we can all do one together here. But it is a little tough because you have to count all the way from 1 to 10, but steadily, right? So if we can all clap together on the 1, and we'll keep counting all the way till 10 and start again. So ready, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1. All right. I got you a cheat sheet there, right? So you can count all the way to 10. So I think of music and rhythm theories as like a technology in a way, right? It's the way we transmit the music, and these have developed over a long period of time, but share a lot of common roots. So our music theory in Western music and in Arabic iqat have roots beyond Pythagoras and the rituals of ancient Egypt. We needed the idea of a steady division of time, of a pulse, and the mathematics of like a rhythmic system to actually make a system that's transferable. And as we trace these rhythms through folk music, through pop music, through courtly music, we help see the fascinating way that music, like culture, kind of moves. So each day in class, we kind of look at a different area as well. Go back to maps, right? You can see a little better at how these things spread when you look at older maps, when you see the area as an empire versus, individual small states. So we do look at some older maps in the course as well. Nowadays, things used to move along the lines of migration and trade routes, but nowadays things move a lot faster, right? If you go to somewhere between China and India, you would eat food that tasted like half between Chinese and Indian food, or you hear music that was kind of like in between there. And now things are moving a lot faster. We have YouTube. So our tabla master in Turkey right now, Bonemin Olguncan, is had a phase of listening to rock music. He had a phase of listening to Arabic pop music. And now he's listening to a lot of Indian musicians on YouTube. And we're all here studying from him, making our own notation, because this is not something that's taught in a school. Let's go back to the original, right? So what's wrong with this picture, the original picture? There are no Arabic speakers here, right? Any Arabic speakers? No, there's Pharaonic Egyptians up there, and those are people in modern day Iran. So that is kind of the power of this drum, though. The drums and the practice of drumming can sort of transcend all the boundaries of language and time, yeah? So I had this realization myself a couple years ago when I was at the Met Museum playing at like a Nubian temple that had been relocated there with my group, and I'm holding this drum, and I'm facing a picture, that's on the wall there, of this drum, and I joked to my bandmates. I said, "Look, it's me, on the wall," and we all laughed. But then I realized, I was like, "Oh, we really are. We're playing the same drum." So even if we're doing it for different reasons, when we're drumming in WSP 92, we're a lot closer to these drummers and everybody else in between us. Thank you, guys. Hope you join us for some rhythm.
Thank you, Rami. That's right, yeah. Let's finish on a high note, or a low note. What an afternoon. Let's give it up one more time for all of our presenters today. I also want to recognize all of the other winter study instructors who are in the room today. By show of hands, if you're teaching a winter study this January, please raise your hand, and let's give them all a huge round of applause for this great effort in making Williams an even better and stronger community. Thanks for being here. Feel free to stick around. Some of our instructors have agreed to stick around for a few minutes after to connect, to answer questions, continue the conversation. But as you all leave today, I hope you'll consider how you can offer glimpses into your own ideas and pursuits to fellow members of this special Williams community. You never know what passions you might spark or connections you may make. I love what Jamie shared earlier. All of us have something to teach and something to learn. I hope that was on full display today. And that impulse is at the heart of Williams and certainly at the core of winter study. So thank you again. Thank you, Hope, my collaborator on this, Katie, and others who made this possible. Have a great night.